How do you lose everything? Your marriage, your home, your stability, while trying to save the very love you're fighting for? That's the question that gnaws at me now, at 31, as I sit in my childhood bedroom, the faint lavender scent of my mom's air freshener mingling with the sting of regret. I'm Casey, once a financial analyst with a life I thought was solid. Married to Kieran, a logistics manager, for 4 years, together for 7, raising our twin boys, Ethan and Liam, now 6. 2 years ago, our marriage was fading, stale routines, shared bed but no spark, just 2 exhausted parents coasting through life. I stumbled across online stories of couples revitalizing their bonds through open relationships, women describing newfound freedom and passion. It felt like a lifeline, a way to rediscover myself without losing Kieran or our family. But Kieran, rooted in tradition, recoiled at the idea, his silence louder than any argument, setting us on a path that would unravel everything, leaving me broke, alone, and watching him build a new life with someone else. 7 years ago, I met Kieran at a friend's barbecue in Chicago, the air thick with charcoal smoke and summer laughter, his easy grin pulling me in as we bonded over shared playlists and grilled corn. We married at 25 in a park ceremony, wildflowers in my hair, promising forever under a golden sunset. The twins arrived soon after, their giggles filling our small apartment, but joy turned to routine. By year 4, work drained us. My downtown office buzzing with spreadsheets and fluorescent hum, Kieran's late shifts coordinating shipments, leaving us strangers. Intimacy faded to quick hellos between diaper changes and deadlines, our evenings spent in separate rooms, him scrolling his phone, me staring at the ceiling, craving more. Late nights, I found forums where women shared how open relationships reignited their spark, their words glowing on my laptop screen as the city hummed outside. Over dinner, the clatter of plates punctuating my words, I'd mention friends like Sarah, who seemed happier after exploring new connections. Kieran would deflect, his jaw tight, suggesting we focus on the boys' school projects. "We're fine," he'd say, but the cracks were obvious. Weeks without touching, conversations stuck on logistics. I wasn't asking for chaos, just a chance to feel alive, to escape the monotony threatening to swallow us. I'd started chatting with Tom, a coworker, over coffee breaks, our talks about books and life, a stark contrast to Kieran's silence. Nothing crossed lines, but his attentive nods in the break room's coffee-scented air felt like oxygen. I dove into research, joining online groups where couples described open marriages, strengthening bonds through honesty. I left articles open on my tablet, hoping Kieran would see the potential, but he'd skim and dismiss his "I'm happy with us" a wall I couldn't climb. Frustration grew, I was growing, yearning, while he seemed content with our dull routine, making me question if he could keep up with who I was becoming. I pushed harder, pointing out our predictability over breakfast, cereal bowls clinking as I asked if this was all he wanted forever. His answer? Date nights, as if a chain restaurant could fix our disconnect. I'd cite vibrant couples we knew, but he'd suggest vacations, missing the deeper issue. His insecurity frustrated me. Why couldn't he see this as growth? I felt like I was shouting into a void, the twins' toys underfoot a reminder of what we risked losing. My additions layered the tension. Finding Kieran's old love letter in a drawer, its passionate words now distant, fueled my urgency. Tom's book club invite, lively debates in a cozy cafe, contrasted Kieran's disinterest, pulling me toward change. Mom, visiting for the boy's birthday, noticed our strain, her "he's a good man" stinging as I hid my forums. These moments deepened my resolve, pushing me to confront Kieran head-on, unaware that my pursuit of freedom would spark a chain reaction, leading to a fracture I never anticipated. The spark of hope I'd found in those online stories about open relationships flickered brighter as I sat in our Chicago apartment. The hum of the city outside mingling with the soft clatter of dishes from another predictable dinner. Kieran's resistance was a wall I kept slamming into, his traditional views chaining us to a marriage that felt like a treadmill, moving but going nowhere. I was 31. A financial analyst crunching numbers in a fluorescent-lit office, but yearning for more than the monotony of parenting our 6-year-old twins, Ethan and Liam, and coexisting with a husband who seemed content with our stale routine. The forums I read late at night, laptop screen glowing as the boys slept, painted pictures of couples who'd broken free from convention, their lives vibrant with new connections. I wanted that for us, a way to save our marriage without losing myself. But every attempt to share this vision with Kieran, over coffee or during rare moments alone, met his furrowed brow and quick subject changes, his discomfort a silent accusation that I was asking for too much. I started gently, dropping hints during our rushed breakfasts, the twins' adult chatter and cereal bowls clinking in the background. Sarah and her husband seemed so alive since they opened things up, I'd say, stirring my coffee, its steam curling in the morning light. Kieran would grunt, muttering about work or the boys' soccer practice, his eyes avoiding mine like I'd spoken in code. I'd leave articles on my tablet, pieces about how open marriages could strengthen bonds through honesty, hoping he'd glance at them. But he'd skim and dismiss, saying, "We don't need that, Casey," his voice flat, as if my ideas were a betrayal rather than a lifeline. Frustration simmered. I was growing, craving intellectual and emotional sparks, while he clung to a routine that felt like a slow suffocation. My connection with Tom, the coworker from accounting, deepened in the break room, where coffee machine hisses punctuated our talks about philosophy and films, things Kieran never cared for. Nothing crossed lines, but his attentive nods and thoughtful questions made me feel seen. Unlike the silence at home where Kieran scrolled his phone, the TV droning in the next room. I dove deeper into research, joining online groups where couples shared stories of thriving through open relationships, their words resonating as I sat in our dimly lit living room, the twins' toys scattered like reminders of our shared life. I sent Kieran more articles, citing stats on happier marriages, but he'd barely read them, his "I'm fine with us" a refrain that grated. I'd point out our drift, weeks without real conversation, nights in separate rooms, asking if this was what he wanted forever. His solution? Date nights. As if pasta at a chain restaurant could reignite what we'd lost. I got strategic, tired of his deflections. Over dinner, the kitchen smelling of spaghetti sauce, I'd call out our predictability. Same work stories, same shows, same silence. Is this it, Kieran? For the next 40 years? I'd ask, the twins' laughter from their room underscoring mistakes. He'd suggest vacations or babysitters, missing the point entirely. I brought up friends like Mark, who glowed talking about his open marriage, but Kieran made faces, changing topics to the boys' homework. His resistance felt personal, like he didn't trust our bond to withstand growth. I argued an open relationship could ease our pressures, offering emotional support outside each other, but he acted like I was proposing chaos. His "I just want us," a plea that rang hollow against our disconnect. My additions intensified the divide. One night, I found a photo from our honeymoon, us laughing on a beach, now a stark contrast to our cold silences, pushing me to fight harder. Tom invited me to a lecture on modern relationships, its ideas buzzing in a cozy auditorium, fueling my vision. Mom, over for dinner, sensed my restlessness. Her marriage takes work lecture stinging as I hid my phone's forum tabs. A coworker's story of her open marriage's success, shared over lunch, cemented my resolve. These moments sharpened my frustration, making Kieran's refusal feel like a rejection of me, not just the idea. I decided to push harder, believing I could make him see the potential, unaware that my insistence would ignite a spark in him. One that would burn our marriage to the ground, leading to consequences I never foresaw. The push for an open marriage was like tossing a match into dry grass, and while I thought it would spark new life into our fading bond, it only fanned flames I couldn't control. Kieran's resistance had worn me down, his stubborn cling to monogamy feeling like a chain holding back the vibrant life I craved at 31. Our Chicago apartment, cluttered with the twins' toys and the hum of a dishwasher that never seemed to stop, was a stage for our growing disconnect. Ethan and Liam, now 6, filled our days with soccer games and bedtime stories, but the space between Kieran and me widened, our evenings marked by the glow of separate screens and the silence of unspoken needs. I'd found solace in online forums, their tales of open relationships promising freedom and connection, read late at night as the city buzzed outside, the laptop's light casting shadows on walls papered with the twins' drawings. My talks with Tom, the coworker whose bookish charm lit up break room chats, made me feel alive. His questions about my dreams, a stark contrast to Kieran's disinterest. But convincing Kieran to try something new was like moving a boulder uphill, and I was determined to make him see what we could gain. I'd been strategic, pointing out our marriage's monotony over breakfasts where cereal bowls clinked and the twins' chatter drowned out softer tensions. "We're just roommates, Kieran," I'd say, stirring coffee, its bitter steam rising. "Same conversations, same routines, don't you want more?" His deflections, suggestions of date nights or vacations felt like band-aids on a broken bone. I'd cite friends like Sarah, whose open marriage seemed to radiate joy, or share articles about couples thriving with new connections, leaving them open on my tablet by the couch, its screen glowing temptingly. But Kieran would skim and dismiss, his "I'm happy with us," a mantra that grated, his discomfort palpable in the tightening of his jaw. I pushed harder, bringing up moments of his absence, like last year's grueling work months when he barely spoke, or his dad's illness when he shut me out emotionally. "Wouldn't it have been better if I'd had someone else to lean on?" I'd ask, the kitchen's fluorescent light harsh on his reluctant nod. Frustration boiled over. I felt like I was growing while he stayed stuck, his insecurities blocking our potential. I'd argue that an open relationship could ease our burdens, offering support we couldn't give each other. But he'd make faces, suggesting babysitters or movie nights, missing the deeper issue. Online groups fueled my resolve. Stories of couples communicating openly and finding balance, their words resonating as I sat in our dim living room, the twins asleep, their snores a reminder of what I was fighting for. Tom's intellectual spark, debating novels over coffee, the break room's machine hissing, made me crave more, pushing me to demand change. "We're young, Kieran," I'd say over dinner, spaghetti sauce simmering. "Why settle for this when we could have so much more?" Finally, after weeks of tension, the air thick with the twins' crayons and our unspoken resentments, I laid it out bluntly one night, the TV muted in the background. "I love you, but this isn't enough," I said, heart pounding. "I need freedom to explore, to feel alive, and it could help us both. Can we try it for 6 months?" Kieran's silence stretched, his eyes searching mine. Then he nodded reluctantly, exhaustion in his voice. "Fine, for you," he said, and I felt a rush of hope, believing we'd found a path forward. Within days, I was connecting with people. Tom, a fitness enthusiast from an app, and an artist I met online. Each conversation a burst of energy, like opening windows in a stuffy room. The attention was intoxicating. Men listening to my thoughts, laughing at my stories, making me feel desirable after years of invisibility. My additions layered the stakes. I found an old photo of us at a concert, Kieran's arm around me, now a painful reminder of lost spark, fueling my push. Tom's invitation to a poetry reading, its intimate venue scented with wine and candles, contrasted Kieran's routine, pulling me deeper. Mom's visit for the twins' school play, her marriage's compromise lecture over dinner, stung as I hid my excitement about new connections. A forum post about a couple's renewed passion after opening up became my mantra, taped to my desk, urging me on. These moments sharpened my resolve, but Kieran's half-hearted swipes on dating apps, his complaints about feeling weird, hinted at trouble. I thought I was saving us, but his reluctance was a warning, the first crack in a foundation that would soon collapse under the weight of my own ambitions. The trial of our open marriage, finally greenlit by Kieran's reluctant nod, felt like a door swinging open to a world of possibility. But it was Kieran's unexpected leap into that world that lit the fuse on our unraveling. I was 31, a financial analyst in Chicago, my days filled with spreadsheets and the hum of office air conditioners, my nights alive with the promise of new connections that made me feel seen after years of fading into motherhood and routine. Kieran, a logistics manager, had agreed to 6 months of openness, his agreement more surrender than enthusiasm, extracted in our cramped kitchen where the twins' crayons littered the table and the scent of overcooked pasta hung heavy. I'd envisioned us both thriving, drawing energy from new experiences to rekindle our marriage. But while I dove in with excitement, Kieran's half-hearted attempts hinted at a shift I hadn't anticipated. One that would introduce Rosalie and tip our fragile balance into chaos. Within a week, I was soaring, connecting with 3 men who lit up parts of me I'd forgotten. Tom, the coworker from accounting, deepened our coffee break chats into late-night talks about literature, his thoughtful questions in a cozy cafe's glow, a stark contrast to Kieran's silence. A fitness enthusiast from a dating app, Jake, invited me rock climbing, the gym's chalky air and adrenaline a thrill Kieran's couch-bound evenings couldn't match. Then there was Leo, an artist I met online, his wine-soaked discussions of culture in dimly lit galleries reawakening my intellectual spark. Each connection was a burst of color in my gray routine, their attention, laughs over shared stories, nods at my ideas, making me feel desirable again, like I was more than just mom or wife. I'd come home from dates buzzing, the city's neon lights reflecting my high, ready to share with Kieran, hoping he'd catch the same fire. But Kieran wasn't embracing the opportunity. He'd swipe through dating apps for 10 minutes, the glow of his phone casting shadows in our living room, then sigh, "This feels weird," and give up. I tried to coach him, sitting on our worn couch, the twins' toys scattered underfoot, suggesting profile tweaks or meetups with coworkers who shared his love of logistics puzzles. "It's new. It'll feel strange at first," I'd say, but his negativity drained me, his awkward coffee dates ending with complaints about no spark. I was thriving, managing work, parenting, and new relationships with a balance I'd owned in online forums, while he seemed stuck, his reluctance a mirror of the insecurities I'd pegged as our marriage's flaw. His refusal to engage felt like a rejection of the growth I was chasing, making me question if he could ever match my pace. Then everything shifted. Kieran attended a work conference, the kind of sterile hotel event with stale coffee and name tags, and came back different, lighter, almost buoyant. He mentioned Rosalie, a colleague he'd met there, with a casualness that didn't match the spark in his eyes. At first I was relieved, thinking he'd finally get what I'd been preaching. New connections could energize us. Over dinner, the twins' chatter mixing with the clink of forks, he'd talk about her. "Rosalie's so smart, has this way of explaining supply chain stuff." I nodded, encouraging, but unease crept in as he kept talking, her humor, her insights, her ease. It wasn't like my connections, which were fun, contained additions to my life. Kieran was different. Less clingy, more confident, less focused on me, as if Rosalie had flipped a switch I hadn't touched in years. His newfound energy grated. I'd mention a new restaurant, and he'd counter, "Rosalie took me to this great spot last week," his voice alive in a way I hadn't heard since our early days. I'd suggest a movie, and he'd say, "Rosalie had such interesting takes on that genre." It was like she'd hijacked our conversations, her name a constant refrain in our kitchen, where the scent of coffee lingered from rushed mornings. The twins noticed, asking why Daddy was always texting, their questions piercing as I tucked them in, their room cozy with stuffed animals. Kieran's excitement for Rosalie wasn't casual, it felt serious, threatening the family stability I'd worked to protect. I'd wanted exploration, not replacement, but he was diving headfirst into something deeper, ignoring our agreed boundaries. My additions sharpened the tension. One night, I found a doodle on Kieran's notepad, a sketch of a conference badge with Rosalie's name, a small betrayal that stung. Jake took me kayaking, the water's cool spray a brief escape, but coming home to Kieran's distracted smile dimmed it. Mom, visiting for a school event, saw his phone light up with Rosalie's texts, her "he's changed" comment fueling my worry. A forum post warned about new relationship energy overtaking primary bonds, echoing my fears. These moments crystallized Kieran's shift, pushing me to act to save what we had, unaware that my next steps would accelerate our downfall. As Rosalie's shadow grew larger in our fragile open experiment, Kieran's sudden shift, from reluctant participant to starry-eyed romantic with Rosalie, turned our open marriage experiment into a battleground. The Chicago apartment we shared now a minefield of tension, where the twins' laughter couldn't mask the growing rift. I was 31. Juggling my financial analyst job and new connections that sparked life back into me, while Kieran, a logistics manager, had embraced his conference fling with an intensity that threatened everything I'd hoped to preserve. The kitchen, once warmed by the scent of spaghetti sauce and family dinners, now hosted late-night arguments, the air thick with the clink of coffee mugs and unspoken accusations. I'd wanted an open relationship to save us, to bring vibrancy to our stale bond, but Kieran's obsession with Rosalie was rewriting the rules we'd set. pushing me to impose boundaries to protect our family. His refusal to see the danger in his actions ignited a fire I couldn't douse, and my attempts to rein him in only widened the chasm between us. I'd been thriving in the open arrangement, balancing work, parenting Ethan and Liam, and my 3 connections: Tom's intellectual talks in cozy cafes, Jake's adrenaline-fueled rock climbing, Leo's cultured wine nights, each a burst of color in my gray routine. Coming home from dates, the city's neon lights reflecting my high, I'd share stories, hoping Kieran would catch the spark. But he barely tried. His half-hearted app swipes ending in complaints about no chemistry, his face sour as he sat on our worn couch, the twins' toys scattered like landmines. I'd coached him, suggesting meetups with coworkers who loved his logistics puzzles. But his negativity drained me. His "this isn't me" a slap to my efforts. Then Rosalie entered, and he transformed. Confident, distracted, his phone buzzing with her texts, his voice alive with her name over breakfast, cereal bowls clattering as the twins asked why Daddy was so happy. His obsession grated. I'd mention a new restaurant, and he'd counter, "Rosalie showed me this amazing place," his eyes distant. I'd suggest a movie, and he'd muse, "Rosalie's got such cool takes on films." It was like she'd hijacked our life, her presence a constant hum in our apartment where the twins' bedtime stories now competed with his texting. I'd wanted exploration, fun, casual connections, but Kieran was building something serious, pushing boundaries we'd agreed on. No deep emotional ties, no family introductions. He started asking to bring Rosalie to school events, to meet the boys, even suggesting weekend trips. "She's great with kids," he'd say, chopping vegetables for dinner, the knife's rhythm sharp. I'd remind him our deal was about growth, not replacing our family, but he'd snap, "You're changing the rules," his voice cold in our kitchen's fluorescent light. I acted to protect us, setting clearer boundaries one evening as the twins slept, their room cozy with stuffed animals. "No overnights, no meeting the boys, no vacations," I said, standing by the sink, dishes soaking in sudsy water. Kieran exploded, calling me hypocritical since I'd stayed out late, spent money on dates, new dresses, dinners, gas for city drives. "You're doing whatever you want," he shouted, the TV muted in the background. But my connections were contained, fun additions that didn't threaten our core. His with Rosalie felt like a betrayal, an emotional affair disguised as openness. The twins sensed it, asking why Daddy was always texting his special friend, their questions piercing as I tucked them in, their blankets soft but heavy with worry. I started watching his phone, his constant texts with Rosalie, inside jokes, intimate chats, stinging like betrayal. Confronting him one night, the living room dim with only a lamp's glow, I pointed out his violation of our spirit. "You're replacing me," I said, voice shaking. He turned it back, accusing me of controlling him, ignoring my balanced approach. The kids' confusion grew, Liam asking why Mommy was upset, Ethan quieter at dinner, their plates barely touched. I suggested pausing the open experiment to refocus, thinking he'd see our family's value, but he stunned me, saying he wanted to end not just the openness but our marriage. "I'm done," he said, eyes cold, as if 7 years meant nothing. My additions deepened the fracture. Finding Rosalie's conference badge in his jacket, a tangible symbol of his shift, cut deeper than words. A late-night forum post warned of partners falling too hard, mirroring my fears, its advice ignored as I clung to hope. Mom, visiting for a school play, saw Kieran's distraction, her "you pushed him away" lecture stinging over coffee. Jake's kayak trip, water splashing cool, felt hollow, as I returned to Kieran's aloofness. These moments crystallized my desperation to save us, but Kieran's resolve to leave, fueled by Rosalie's pull, was a tide I couldn't fight, pushing us toward a divorce that would strip me bare and leave him thriving in a life I'd envisioned for us. Kieran's declaration that he wanted to end our marriage hit like a freight train, shattering the fragile hope I'd clung to in our open relationship experiment. The Chicago apartment, now a battlefield where the twins' toys lay scattered like debris. I was 31, a financial analyst whose days were spent in the sterile hum of office cubicles. My nights, once vibrant with new connections, now soured by arguments that left the air thick with resentment. The kitchen, where we'd set rules over the clink of coffee mugs and the scent of burnt toast, became the stage for our unraveling. Kieran's cold resolve to leave with Rosalie, a woman he'd met mere months ago, erasing 7 years of shared history. I'd pushed for openness to save us, to breathe life into our stale bond, but his obsession with her had turned my vision into a nightmare. And the divorce that followed was a brutal reckoning that left me reeling, fighting to hold on to the fragments of the life I'd built. The arguments escalated after his bombshell, each one a wound that bled out our marriage. One night, as the twins slept in their room filled with the soft glow of nightlights and the faint smell of their bubble bath, I confronted him in the living room, the TV muted, its flicker casting shadows on our worn couch. "You're throwing away everything. Our home, our boys, for someone you barely know," I said, voice trembling with fury and hurt. Kieran stood by the window, city lights glinting outside, his face hard. "You wanted this open thing, Casey," he shot back. "You pushed, and now I've found something real. I'm not the one breaking us. You did that." His words stung, twisting my intent to save us into blame, as if my desire for growth had justified his betrayal. I reminded him of our rules: no deep emotional ties, no family disruption, but he accused me of hypocrisy, pointing to my late nights with Tom, Jake, and Leo, ignoring how I'd kept them separate, never letting them touch our core. The twins felt the fallout, their questions growing sharper. Over dinner, plates of half-eaten mac and cheese cooling, Liam asked, "Why's Daddy always happy when he leaves?" Ethan, quieter, stared at his fork, sensing the storm. I shielded them as best I could, forcing smiles as I tucked them in, their blankets warm but heavy with my guilt. Kieran's time with Rosalie increased. Weekend outings, her name dropping casually. "Rosalie thinks the boys would love this park." Each mention a knife in my chest. I'd check his phone when he showered, the bathroom's steam wafting out, finding texts filled with inside jokes and plans, an emotional affair that mocked our agreement. "You're replacing me," I'd cry, the living room lamp casting harsh light on his defensive glare. "You're controlling me," he'd retort, as if my boundaries were chains, not safeguards. Divorce talks began, cold and clinical, in a mediator's office that smelled of stale coffee and paper. Kieran's lawyer, a sharp woman in a navy suit, argued my affairs showed lack of commitment, twisting our open agreement into infidelity. My spending on dates, dresses, dinners, gas for city drives was painted as reckless, despite Kieran's own freedom to spend, which he'd barely used. "You wanted this lifestyle," his lawyer said, her pen tapping, as if my pursuit of growth negated my rights. The settlement was brutal. Alimony barely covered basics. The house we'd bought together, where we'd painted the twins' nursery blue, went to Kieran, who sold it to move with Rosalie. I fought for joint custody, but the judge leaned toward Kieran's stability, his new life with Rosalie framed as a better home, leaving me with weekends and a sinking heart. Packing to leave, the apartment echoing with the twins' laughter now gone, I felt the weight of failure. I moved to my mom's, my childhood bedroom, a time capsule of old dreams, her "I told you so" lectures stinging over morning coffee. The twins' visits were bittersweet. They'd returned from Kieran's glowing about Rosalie's crafts and outings, their backpacks stuffed with drawings from her funhouse. I'd nod, hiding tears, as they described a life I couldn't compete with. My budget stretched thin by legal fees and rent. My additions deepened the collapse. Finding a forgotten anniversary card from Kieran, its forever vow now mocking, broke me as I packed. Tom's last coffee date, his sympathy in the cafe's warm light, faded as he distanced post-divorce. Mom's lecture over a twin school project, her "you pushed him away" cutting deep, echoed forum warnings I'd ignored about open relationships backfiring. A coworker's pitying look at my desk, noticing my ringless finger, underscored my isolation. These moments framed the divorce as my unintended consequence, pushing me toward a reckoning with my choices as Kieran's new life with Rosalie cast a shadow over my fractured one. The divorce left me stranded in a life I barely recognized. My Chicago apartment swapped for my mom's house at 31, where the lavender air freshener and creak of my childhood bedroom floorboards underscored my fall. The settlement had gutted me. Meager alimony, no house, and joint custody that felt like a hollow victory when Ethan and Liam came back from Kieran's glowing about their weekends. I'd been a financial analyst, once steady in a downtown office with its hum of computers and coffee, but now I was scrambling, my savings drained by legal fees, my confidence shaken by a marriage that crumbled when I tried to save it. Kieran, meanwhile, was thriving. His new life with Rosalie, a polished postcard of the future I'd envisioned for us. New house, promotion, and my boys calling her fun. The injustice burned. My push for an open marriage meant to breathe life into our stale bond, now twisted into my downfall, leaving me broke, isolated, and grappling the resentment that simmered like the bitter coffee I drank each morning. Moving into Mom's was a necessity. My childhood room a shrine of old posters and regrets, her lectures relentless over breakfast, the kitchen smelling of toast and judgment. "You threw away a good man," she'd say, her eyes sharp as she poured cream, oblivious to the nights I'd spent trying to revive our spark.